You are live, it says. Hello, everyone. Happy Monday evening. Hope this finds you super good, which is obviously a technical term. Welcome to tonight's recording of On the Ball. We should have a bit of a cracker in line for you today, hopefully. We've got my good self here, obviously, hosting. I'll just share it all on Facebook. You know how this normally works. Your patience, as always, is appreciated. Not just me tonight, though. Look. Got Darren Huckerby and Steve Sanders. Steve Sanders trying to look like he's not eating. There we go. A little bit. Really excited that we've got those guys on. We're going to talk about the game at the weekend, obviously, and as usual, and all the stuff around it. But we are in the middle going to have a section for your questions. So and I'll flag this up, obviously, once we start recording as well. If there's anything you want to ask any of us, and it doesn't just have to be Hucks, but of course, you know, he's here, so make the most of him. But if there's anything you want to ask any of us, get your questions in, whether that's, I think Twitter comments come through. Likewise, if you're watching on YouTube, you can get involved in the chats there, or on Facebook comments. They should all come through to our feeds here so that we can then check over them and put them to where they need to be put to see if we can answer them. So do your best, and we will do our best in return, which will be the plan. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to this. It should be a cracker. I do need my Facebook to stop talking, though. That's good. I'll check my buzzer work. Oh, no, I don't need to check my buzzer's working because I'm actually going to do that time. We're going to spend a bit of time on the questions in the middle. So it's your Q&A. Make the most of it. We are here to answer your questions. And we'll obviously talk a bit about the football stuff as well. But if you're all good, I'm all good. I think we're all good. I reckon we should probably crack on with the pod. So let me get everything ready to crack on with. We'll get recording. Enjoy it. And we'll see you on the other side. Not the right video. Here we go. Hello all and welcome to edition 104 of the On the Ball podcast. The Norwich City podcast that once followed Darren Huckerby home. Hopefully he'll never find out. I'm Michael Bailey. I cover the Canaries for The Athletic and I hope this finds you safe and well. On the way, taking hammers to new extremes. Who's the new Danish lad? And the ideal championship prep. We'll work through all that and more with our guests this fine evening. They are Norwich numberwang chief aka at NCFC Numbers, also known as our very own Steve Sanders.
Evening, Michael.
Muted yourself just in time there. And I'm delighted to say joining us tonight as well is former Norwich winger, academy coach, bona fide club legend and friend of the pod. It's Darren Huckerby.
Good evening, everybody. Hope everyone's okay.
There he is. Thanks for joining us, everyone out there watching live on various media platforms, social media platforms, everyone listening to the podcast, and indeed to the gentleman with me this evening. How are we all doing? Steve, how are you? You're still eating your dinner, so thanks for...
I have finished. I've wolfed it down and I'm done. The listeners will not care about this, but normally I can rely on Michael starting this late. I will always be eating my dinner beyond 8 o'clock, but today we've, in a rare bit of punctuality, managed to start on time. So I was not prepared for this, but like a professional, have finished my pasta and I'm obviously raring to go.
I did make the joke to you in WhatsApp that had you still been eating, it wouldn't be the least professional thing I'd have seen over the weekend. But there we go.
Not the least professional thing we've done on this podcast this season either. So yeah,
also true. I don't. Maybe it says something about me, my preparation levels or attention to detail. But I knew Hucks was on, so I thought I'd better be prompt and punctual because I don't think he likes a lack of punctuality. Do you, Hucks?
No, got to be on early. Got to be ready to go at every single occasion.
Which I'm sure is what you demanded of all your ex-teammates. How are you, Darren?
Very well, yeah, very well. It's been a difficult few days, I guess, for anyone associated with Norwich City. So I'm sure we'll get onto it.
Thanks for limiting it to just a few days. That's good. Now, I will say we are going to, this evening as we record the podcast, we are broadcasting live. We are going to open up the middle section to your questions. So if you are watching us live, as we have promised and teased over a number of weeks, and as we have Hucks with us, if you want to get your questions in, we will all endeavor to answer them. You can direct them solely at Darren, or it can be for all of us. Or if there's anything you've really wanted Steve to answer, but appreciate that you might not be able to answer it immediately in terms of a stats nature, get them to us this evening. We'll probably be doing that in about 15 minutes time. So stack them in. If you think of it, post it, and we will then go through them all, won't we, Steve? And keep track of everything everyone's asking. Together.
As many as we can before 9 o'clock.
That is the way to do it. Well, I'll tell you what, in that case, I reckon we should crack on immediately with this week's headline act. Now, for a season where we were hoping for something different to 2 years ago, the football gods clearly felt like playing a trick on us all. Norwich were thrashed 4-0 by West Ham at home in the fourth from last. Is that right? Fourth from last game of the season, just like 2 years ago. The only difference is this time they'd already been relegated, whereas last time it actually relegated Norwich officially. It was an awful afternoon, but at least Michail Antonio didn't score all 4 goals. Now, at this point, we should probably say we did kind of debrief a lot of what happened in terms of relegation and the season as a whole in last week's podcast. So make sure you give that a listen. Steve, was this at the weekend things going from bad to worse, or just really bad, or what was it?
Yeah, I think it probably was going from bad to worse. I was trying to think, like, is that the worst it's felt this season? I think it probably was. It's probably the worst feeling a game at Carrow Road, maybe even since the 7-1 against Colchester. I think there was just a sense that from the fans that they'd had enough. You know, it was like, yeah, we've seen enough of this now, and just, you know, it's not much fun getting hammered with, excuse the pun, first word I could think of, every week, and it just felt like we weren't even competing, you know, against a team who had been knocked out of Europe 3 days earlier, have had a long, grueling season, and it just looked so easy for them. Now, don't get me wrong, they've obviously got much better players than we have, and West Ham are a very good side and can't be underestimated. But you know, looking back at the goals, there was no pressure on the ball. It just felt like they strolled through us, and we may have played worse over 90 minutes this season than we did yesterday. But I think in terms of the feeling in the ground, it probably was the lowest it's been. And it's interesting, actually, that you say that in your interview, because I'm pretty sure I remember you saying a couple of years ago that when we went on, what was it, the 11-game losing run at the end of the season, you know, what would this be like if there were full, if the ground was full, obviously half full by the end as it was. But I think we're getting an idea, you know, because this is history repeating itself, you know, in terms of the bad run of results and the fact that we lost 4-0 at home to West Ham. And I think we're getting an idea now of exactly what it would be like. And it's not pretty.
It's not pretty, not very clever, has to be said. The thing that struck me, and I hadn't realised this really properly at the time, it's the first time I've been at Carrow Road for a dead rubber. Obviously, it wasn't a dead. It's worth pointing out that West Ham are still fighting to finish in the top 6, so they've actually got a bit to play for still, and to qualify for Europe next year. But the first time I'd experienced a post-relegation game at home where relegation was already confirmed at Carrow Road with supporters, which I hadn't really twigged that. So it was a unique experience, one I hope I would never get to experience again. But of course, we will do on the final game of the season. Hucks, have you had to play in a game like that where relegation is already sorted? I mean, it's very different to either having already won the title or promotion, or having nothing to play for.
No, I've done it a couple of times where it's gone down to the last game at Coventry, and obviously at Norwich when we lost to Fulham. But it was really, really strange game Saturday or Sunday. You know, you said a dead rubber, but you know, in professional sport, there can't be any dead rubbers. You know, every player that's playing is playing for something. You're playing for your future. You're playing for your mum and dad are in the stand. You're playing for the fans. It should never be a dead game. And for 45 minutes, first 45 minutes, and then the last 25 minutes, I thought that's probably as bad as I've seen us for a long, long time. You know, near the end of the game, it was basically them just passing the ball around and us just watching them pass the ball around. No tackles, no intensity, no fight. It looked like they gave up, basically. And if that's not a Dean Smith side, or from what I've seen of his other teams, the way that we finished that game, it was embarrassing. If we're going to be honest, it was a bit, as a fan, that's why half the fans were left, because it was embarrassing. Don't get me wrong, West Ham are a good team, but Declan Rice looked like a good player to his 65 years old in midfield and at centre half.
Yeah,
it looked like one of the best centre midfielders in the league, and then looked like Virgil van Dijk when he went at the back. So it just shows you that, it just shows you how far we're off it. We're miles off it. The fans aren't stupid. The players probably know it themselves. We're miles off what we need to be.
I mean, I do love Declan Rice as a player, I have to say. But yeah, point taken, definitely. And I mean, I suppose this is the thing, Hucks, it's a team, but it's made up by the sum of its parts. So ultimately, you could be someone in that team who is really fired up and does want to show professional pride. But if others don't, then obviously there's only so much you can do about that. But I mean, is it professional pride? Is it a lack of that? Or is it just literally hoping it all ends and feeling sorry for yourself? What do you imagine it is that meant that the players just couldn't muster, much, really?
I don't know. There's players in that team, who do give it all. You can see, the handlers and people like that. They do. That's how they're built. But if the manager's taking off players at half time because they don't think they're working hard enough, that can't be right. That can't be right. The players first and foremost must look at themselves and be slightly embarrassed where we are. We're going to go down again as one of the worst Premier League teams of all time. And you probably know the numbers, but statistically, we must be in the top 5 worst teams of all time, something like that, or close to it, I'm guessing. So,
Steve, are they numbers you have to hand, Steve?
I don't have. I mean, in terms of points, I think we're probably not quite. I mean, Derby are the classic one with 11 that they got, but I think looking at goal difference and the numbers that we've conceded, we're certainly on. I think that there's a definite possibility that we may be the second worst in history, and it certainly felt like that, hasn't it? Compare it to 2 years ago. There were some games where it felt a little bit like we were in it, we were unlucky, we played teams at a bad time. This year, I mean, I think quite honestly they'd been lucky to get 21. I think they've come up against teams who have then gone on to sack their manager. They've played teams and been beaten by teams who've been on horrendous runs. You think of Brentford, Leeds, Brighton, we got a point against, but they were on a horrendous run. Villa had lost 5 in a row before we came up against them. I don't think this year there are any excuses for what we've got. And in all honesty, I think it could have been worse than 21 points. I'm not quite sure it's reflective.
The teams that we actually beat were absolutely shocking on the day when we played them.
Yeah.
And I can't remember us beating a team that was decent. When Burnley came here, they were all over the place. What are we going to do? Everton were absolutely abysmal when they came to us. You take 2 or 3 of them wins out, which we ain't got many of. And it's been a disaster. You can't sugarcoat it. The season's been a disaster, and from start to finish. And there's not many players, if any, maybe Hanley, maybe Krul a little bit, Pookie a little bit, have come out of it with any credit at all. Which is, usually when you've had a bit of a bad season, some players do come out of it with some credit, but this has been tough.
Well, there's 4,000 words on The Athletic about how bad the season has. If anyone wants to read it, you can go and do that. The defending, I guess it's all summed up by the second goal, really, which I know that, and I've mentioned this in my video verdict, the Barclays reaction to that on St. Pitt was, that's why we're going down. I mean, I don't necessarily think it is, because I think Norwich have tried to be more competent and coherent at times and still defended badly, just sort of slightly generally, rather than the comedy of certainly West Ham's second goal. Steve, I mean, is that just a sort of a symptom of how bad things have got in a way? And also people see that Dean Smith says it's comic defending, and most people will respond to that saying, yeah, if only someone could do something about it, Dean. But I mean, he's not going to do training sessions saying, can you not,
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's probably not why we're going down insofar as it was two of the two players involved were two who have certainly been less culpable. Two of the ones that Hucks named just now in Krul and Hanley. I think I don't know. I sort of feel like that was one of those things. I'd almost be more concerned about goals 1 and 3, where, I mean, I suppose the build up to 2 wasn't great either, where there's just no pressure on the ball at all. And, goal number 1, the first goal, Ben Rama's just allowed to cut inside and get a shot off. Wasn't Max's best game, and we know he's a better defender than that. So, I guess, I suppose the thing is, you don't see the likes of Brentford conceding that goal, and well, certainly not at the moment anyway. And I suppose that's where the frustration comes, is that we keep finding these new ways and ridiculous ways to concede these goals somehow. So yeah, I guess the comic nature of it just sort of summed the performance up more than anything, really.
That's a problem, but also we don't like scoring at all in virtually any game. So, it must be hard for the defence, because basically they've got to be perfect for 90 minutes in the Premier League, week in, week out, because we don't look like we're going to take the lead. We don't look like we're going to put other teams under pressure, and we don't put the other teams on the back foot at all. So you're on a hiding to nothing if you're in the defence. You're basically saying we can't make any mistakes, because if they score, we're done, because we don't look like we're going to get back into any single game we play. It's really difficult. The pressure's always on the back four, because we've got no outlets. We don't relieve the pressure at all. We're basically just camped in and hoping for the best. It's really difficult.
I think just to follow up on that point, and Dan made this point last week, actually. I think you look at the defence and it's not the best, but it does have a goalkeeper, a centre-back, a right-back who we know have been excellent at championship level, albeit probably playing without a lot of confidence. We do have a striker who we know with the right services is capable of scoring a lot of goals. I think it's maybe oversimplifying it, but I think the problems at both ends of the pitch come down to the fact that the midfield is just completely substandard. It's just, we get overrun far too easily and we don't create anything at the other end. And yeah, everyone's culpable in this team, and it would be unfair to blame 5 players in the middle of the pitch for it entirely. But I do think a lot of it comes down to the fact that the midfield is just way, way, way off the level it needs to be.
Okay. Well, because I was just going to rattle through some potential positives, just for a little dusting.
Sorensen.
And Jakob Sorensen was a potential one. I mean, maybe that's just because we'd seen him, I suppose. And I don't know. I'd like to know what you guys feel. I'll start with you, Steve, because I didn't see really. I thought Jakob was good. Well, all relatively speaking, was better in the second half, and I didn't really see any reason why he's had such few opportunities since his injury.
Yeah, I would go along with that. I didn't think he was awful, but I think he was good on the ball. And I think he could be maybe a handy player when we're not getting attacked so much next season. I don't know whether he offered the protection to the back four that we would need against the decent Premier League team, but I certainly don't. It's difficult to say, isn't it? But I think on that performance, you could see him, because his distribution and the way he moved the ball forward wasn't bad, and that's going to be an asset next season. So I've been calling for him to get a chance. I'm glad he got that chance. I don't think he did that disastrously that he'll never get picked again. Hucks is laughing. So
I'm laughing because I think wherever he's coming, he's done okay. But we're 3-0 down, and basically West Ham took the foot off the gas. I know we damage limitation, as Dean Smith said, but basically the game was over. The game was over. We got nowhere near their midfield. Like I said, Declan Rice could still be playing now, and still would know when they'd be near him. We've got to be realistic here. West Ham did what they wanted for near 90 minutes. They took the foot off the gas. It should have been 5-0 at half time. It should have been. They had a couple more good chances that they didn't take. You can't say someone did pretty well when we're 3-0 down at half time. Come on, let's be.
Okay, well that's fine. On the continuation of the theme, Tony Springett came on.
Right, I've got another thing to say about this as well.
Okay,
it's great for me. Tony Springett, well done. Another Premier League debut for the academy. All looks good. My biggest concern is that you've got a player that costs £10 million in Jovis, someone who's never played a kicked ball in the Premier League is coming on before, and that's very, very worrying, because I don't know what it's like in training, Jovis, but if you're bringing a kid on who hasn't kicked a first team ball for a Premier League debut, and you're not putting someone on who costs £10 million, that sends alarm bells ringing in my head straight away.
Do you think that was? Do you think that was a bit of like, I don't know, damage limitation from Dean Smith in that he knew that I don't know if managers react like this, but he knew the crowd were going to get so on the players, and he thought, I'll just chuck one of the kids on, and at least that's kind of something positive to get behind. I don't know if that was his thinking.
Yeah, maybe. But then there's also people, 20,000 people looking around thinking, wait, we could pay £10 million for this kid who's only a year or two older than Tony Sprigg anyway. So it just for me, it's like, how bad has got to be in training not to even have a sniff when we're 4-0 down and we haven't created a chance? It's worrying. It's worrying because managers want to do well. If he thought that Joris could come on and do something, he would bring him on. So in his head, he's thinking, well, maybe he's thinking, we'll give a young lad a chance. But it just, I'm sitting there thinking, wow, if he's not bringing in Joris on, you're putting a kid on who's 17 years old, ain't kicked a ball in the Premier League before. That don't look good for Joris. Let's be honest.
No, I agree with that. I did just have a quick check to see if Joris was actually on the bench because I was trying to remember and we have kind of got to that point as well. The other thing about Christos is that A, he cost 10 million quid. B, he signed a 5-year contract. He is the longest contracted player, I think, in the first team squad at the moment. So if he is someone that Dean doesn't rate, then when he's got a 5-year deal, that's not ideal.
Well, John Rowe and Sprigg have come on ahead of him. They
have indeed. We'll see what that. I mean, there were. I think was it Jordan Thomas and Akim Famewo both got first team debuts in the Premier League at the end of the 2019-20 season, which I always felt was kind of interesting, given Daniel Farke used to make a point of not giving out gifts, and that struck me as kind of quite a nice gift to give out. I'm sure they'd worked very hard to get to that point as well, and obviously far harder than me. One quick aside, Tony Springett's nickname is apparently Jerry, which Dean Smith has called him once during a press conference before a game, which is fine. And he did use it and had to correct himself after the game on Sunday, probably feeling that calling him Tony Springett Jerry after a 4-0 defeat in his debut was
not really the right time to be cracking those kind of jokes either, to be honest.
And I think he knew that. I think it was more that it just slipped out because that's obviously what he calls him all day. So there we go. The atmosphere inside the ground, we've kind of talked about, incredibly flat. I don't remember On the Ball being sung once, apart from before kickoff. I remember someone trying to start a chant a couple of times in the first half, but getting nowhere with that, obviously. We had a lot of boos at both whistles, and then sort of, quite a few stick offering chants.
There was a Pookie chant at the end, I think. There was a Pookie chants.
Yeah. After he missed
the one chance that we did have.
It was after he missed the chance, but it was also after he gave the referee some, which I think was more like everyone going, at least he's having an argument with someone. A bit like when people stood up when Grant Hanley put a tackle in the first half, because it's like, someone's put a tackle in, quick, let's stand up and applaud that. So, and as you said, you could sort of see it went from about 10% full in the home areas to half full at sort of 90 minutes to a third full by the full-time whistle. Which is really sad to see, especially as that is literally the second home game on the trot where that has happened. And, I having had the subject of apathy brought up recently, seeing the stadium empty and seeing season ticket holders presumably not bothering to turn up as well, does seem a bit of an issue. That's the issue. That was the atmosphere inside the ground. And then we had the atmosphere outside the ground, which by all accounts, we're talking about a few hundred. Which, when someone told me that, I was quite surprised. But a few hundred people outside the ground, I think, sort of singing "Dealer out, Webber out," and "Sack the board," which I'm not sure how possible most of those things are. So it's obviously, Steve, not ideal. I think it's rather than what the protests or whichever are trying to achieve and who's in them and what they're doing, what it is just a symptom of how either disconnected people feel or the divide in the fan base, just in terms of people pulling in the right direction or pulling in the same direction. It's not conducive, and I'm not blaming them for doing it if that's how they feel.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think I was fairly flippant about it last week, but to be fair, like, people pay the money for the tickets. They're entitled to, if they don't feel like the club is being run properly, then they're entitled to protest. Personally, I don't feel the board are the issue here. But if that's how people feel and they want to protest about it, then fair enough. I don't really see it making much the difference that they want it to make. And equally, like, I sort of feel like it's better than us being completely apathetic and just accepting what's been a really dreadful season and going down with a complete whimper. So in a way, although I'm not out there doing it myself, I can I'm not disappointed that other fans are doing it, if that doesn't sound too weird. I just don't expect anything will come of it.
That's fine. And then we had the stuff with Brandon Williams as well, who decided it would be a good idea to post on Instagram a picture of him putting a middle finger up, which wasn't entirely clear what that was directed at. Since come out, of course, with a statement today that he felt he'd been followed by some Norwich fans from the ground in his car. I have heard conflicting things about what the level of abuse was after the game and stuff. There's a lot going on. Who knows what the real truth is? People have reasons to do things to protect themselves or not. I don't know what the truth is. It's just we know what the facts of what people have said and things like that. So I don't know how much I want to dwell on it, but
it's part and parcel of the game. If you're not playing well, you're going to get stick. If people following you, it's happened to me 50 times. People just follow you, try and find out where you live, but what do you do?
Sorry about that. Sorry about that.
The thing is, it's not right, and you don't condone it, but the only way it changes is if you win games, if you put performances in. The biggest worry of all this, people protesting, and 10 months ago when we got promoted last time, people were saying this is the best team of all time. The club was so together, everyone was in the right direction, and in 10 months, it's basically collapsed. Everything's gone completely. I'm going to say tits up, but it has. It literally, but from where we were 10 months ago, from winning the league to where we are now, it's hard to fathom how it's got this bad this quick. But it is all about winning games. If we went down and at least put a little bit of, look like we put effort in and look like we gave it a go, there would be none of this. It would be, we just didn't have enough. Crack on for next season. But because it's been so poor, I think that's the biggest thing. It's all about winning games. It's about winning games and it looking like you can at least compete. And we haven't competed at all this season. That's what the biggest problem is.
I did a quick bit on ITV Anglia News today, and I got asked, do you think this is a pivotal summer coming up? And I was a bit like, well, yeah, but then I felt like that for numerous years, and often it's not really, because people either sort it out. And I am really conscious of the fact that however the worst case scenario looks, win 8 of your first 10 games in the Championship, which, let's be honest, it's not a great division. I'm not saying Norwich are going to fly away with it if they're not good enough, but it's not great. You could do that. People will, the majority of people will be happy and be like, oh, here we go again. And the Premier League will be rolling their eyes thinking, oh God, no, please. So it's, like you say, Hucks, it does often come down to what's on the pitch. And I do feel a bit for the supporters in that, and maybe this is why it's unraveled so much. They have been at games up until a point where Norwich were fighting relegation in the Premier League. They've then not really witnessed anything else and had no chance to forge relationships with the players. And then they rock up at the start of this season and it's worse for like a year. So I think when people say, oh, I don't really like this team, I don't feel connected to it, there's a lot of players, I just don't think they've had a chance probably to, it strikes me now like Ben Gibson hadn't played in a full Carrow Road with them behind him until the Liverpool game, and you're like, whoa, okay, and he wasn't the only one, because there were a lot of that team who were in that situation as well. So maybe that's why there's more of a fondness for Grant Hanley, Tim Krul, Teemu Pukki, because they've had that connection with them. I don't know, doesn't really probably extend to Kenny McLean, does it? So for them, sadly. So there we go.
Just a quick one before we move.
Yes,
and I don't want to turn this into the Declan Rice Appreciation Society, but I think earlier in the season we were posing if we could have any player from any other Premier League team and they just stick him in Norwich City's team, who would you have? Honestly, I think I'd go with him. Like, I just watching him sort of brushing off Billy Gilmore in midfield in the first half, and just like that is what you need. Obviously, we're never going to get Declan Rice, but just a powerhouse in centre midfield. They've watched that go out and get that defensive midfielder in the summer. Whoever he is, a 6 foot defensive midfielder who knows how to shield a back four. If we could get that, we are in so much of a better position.
He's probably going to Man City though for 150 million. So.
We've missed it. We've missed out.
It's the Norwich City model. What you need to do is go and find him at age 18. And then he's still good enough to play because Declan Rice was probably still good enough to play then. And then you develop him and away you go. Also, Mark Noble coming on, not really needing to move a lot, but, getting to play the ball was quite the sight. I thought Sunday, good and bad, but quite the sight. And good on Mark Noble. Right. In that case, we're going to do the format slightly differently because we're going to take some questions from you all in our Q&A special. But that means that I, first of all, can flourish with, is that the right word, our halftime sting. And in fairness, we are pretty much at half time. This is the sort of timekeeping I am not used to. So let's hope it doesn't all go awry now. But there we go. We'll treat this as a sort of a centerfold section. We are going out live on the podcast this evening, as we do most evenings. And this week we've said we've got Hucks on. Steve loves being asked questions. I know that for a fact. Let's get your questions in, and we'll rattle through them all. We'll see if how many we've got that we've already addressed. Steve, likewise, if you see any that you want to get stuck into, then please do flag them. I'll try and give them a read first, if I can. Andrew Tickner's got the first one in. Question: is it time we accept that European football next season is looking slightly less likely? He's put a winky emoji.
I think impossible is probably more where we're at now, isn't it?
Yeah, this is true. I should probably read these questions before I read them out, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to. So let's crack on. David McKenzie. At the end of last season, we were told that to compete in the Premier League, we needed more athletic players. Can you tell me which player fits this profile?
Declan Rice. Just to get that, spend 150 million now.
It is, it's quite a contradiction, I suppose. I know that they were looking at players. They've got software. They can do their recruitment, planning or judgments and all this sort of stuff that they can use. And they did feel that, players could cover a lot of ground and things like that. And they were putting in more runs and things like that. But for that, you're kind of looking at players like Przemysław Płacheta, I suppose, who then you're sort of maybe looking at them being quite raw in other areas. So can we just put that on the fact that Norwich haven't got the spending power to bring in the players that can do both? Is that what we've learned this year, or have they failed in getting in the physical players?
Well, that's what Normal was meant to be, wasn't it? Lees Malou was meant to be that kind of athletic, rangy runner. The biggest problem, I think, we'll probably get onto this, but not one signing has worked. Not one. So I can't say that one has been. There was a few spells from Rashica basically, but he's got one goal, one deflected goal, and 1.5 Premier League assists in 30 games. And he's been one of our so-called better players. So that's what the problem's been. Every signing, you could probably take Angus out of that because, he's not really had a chance to prove himself because obviously Krul's been in goal. But not one other signing has worked. And that's... They've not made our team stronger. There's not one signing that's made our team stronger. So that's where the problem lies. It is. You can't sugarcoat it. That's what it is.
Oh, go on, Steve.
Well, I was going to ask a question for you, Michael. Like in terms of like how the club works now that we've got a different manager in Smith, will they look at a different profile of player? Because I sort of assumed previously they looked at players that could fit the Farke style of play. Now that we play slightly differently, will they be signing a different type of player in the summer? Because Smith will say this is the kind of player that I want, or will it just be the model is the model?
Yeah, I think what they learned the longer Daniel Farke was in charge was that there was no point putting some players forward because ultimately Daniel Farke could veto anyone they put forward, and if he didn't want them, that was a no. So he had to want them. Obviously, then it became a question of whether everyone agreed on it or not, or could make it happen. So they stopped putting forward players that they felt he wouldn't like, because just to save everyone a discussion. So yeah, you're right. I Dean Smith will want pace, power. They're the two things he sort of is I think wanting to see from his players. It's kind of why I think as good as Josh Martin has done, I think he might struggle to impress on Dean Smith when he does come back to show him what he's got, because I look at that profile and think I don't think he's going to want to use you. So yeah, that's what I'm expecting him to get the chance to put forward, and obviously it'll be the roles as well as a priority, which Dean Smith wants as well. Because I'm guessing there'll be certain positions where he might think, no, I feel like we're all covered here. Let's go here. Obviously, then you're putting a lot of store in the head coach in terms of what the squad is that gets put together, which isn't really how the sporting director head coach role is supposed to work. But needs must. And to be honest, given the way the circumstances are now, I think it's probably fair that Dean Smith has a greater say in it. So we'll see how that pans out. But yeah, that's how I see it.
But the problem you've got is we've got quite a big squad as it is. If you're adding to that, who's going to want some of these players? I know we've got a few loans going back, but realistically, if you need to get a shot of Jolis or Sargent or whatever, who's going to take them?
To be honest, that is probably, we all talk about, the fact they got the players in and they were wrong, but that's probably the biggest failure of the window, that it's imbalanced the squad, that they spread it too thin by recruiting too many players, more players than they wanted to recruit at the start of the transfer window. And that wasn't their strategy just as they got promoted. That for some reason it changed. And as you say, now they were quite quickly, once the window shut, looking at it going, we've actually got quite a big squad here. And that's like, right. And, we're probably going to need to get rid of some of these players. You're like, well, I'm not being funny. Who's going to come in and offer you 2 million quid for, whoever? So, and that's where we are now. And not only that, but I mean, it's kind of a bit as well. Had they had a smaller squad, they probably would have got some of those games called off over Christmas, because they literally didn't have any players. They probably would have helped them out then. Let's get on with another question. Martin Emerson, question for Hucks. I'm sure he wasn't afraid to speak his mind in the dressing room during his playing days. What would he be saying to this squad of players after their poor performances? Would you be calling your own press conference, Hucks?
I've done that before.
Yeah.
I think when it gets to this, you look at yourself first, you sort yourself out, and then you've got to start trying to help other people out. There's nobody that's played that well where they can be telling other people what to do. So for me, people need to look at themselves individually and then sort their own ass out, and then if they can, try and help others. That's the only way you can do it, because you've got to hold yourself accountable. For instance, Rashica, if I had 1 goal and 1 assist after 30 games, I won't be able to sleep at night. That's the truth. That's the truth, because you're judged on goals and assists. So you've got to get your own ass in order before you can start digging other people out. And I don't know, I don't know what the characters are in the dressing room, but I played with people like Malcolm Mackay, Flem, Dion. If you weren't pulling the weight, they were gripping you by the neck in the changing room and telling people, sort this out. There's standards. There's standards, and our standards have not been good enough on the pitch this year. Simple as that. I need to turn some lights on, by the way. It's getting so dark.
He was swiftly just becoming a head, which was very Red Dwarf, and I quite appreciated it. But and now we get to see Hucks' house, which is obviously, if you're setting standards in a dressing room, this is the house you can afford as a result.
This is my game. This is my games room.
Oh, is it? What games have you got in your games room, Hucks? This is a good and important question.
I've just got a pool table.
I've just got a pool table.
Yeah, I've made a little stand there for the
Oh, look at that! He's resourceful. You see,
the pool table is the table. That's nice.
Well, we're all going around to Hucks. We obviously know where you live because we followed you, and we're all going to rock up and play some pool. Offensive question here. I'm afraid Hucks, Stephen Bird, Bailey Hucks look like they could be brothers. I'm really sorry. I feel.
I'm a lot older than you, so I'll take that.
Really? Blimey. Well, one of us is handsome, but I'm not. Yeah. Also, Declan Cotter got in touch. Can Hucks play the rest of the season?
No, I'm struggling with my own hip at the minute. Yeah, so
sad times. Rest it up.
I think I might have more than 1 goal and 1 assist. Though. I'm just putting that out there.
Bad hip or new bad hip?
Your house would have been in order. I think we can take that. Benjamin David Skelton. Hello, Benjamin. How many players would Darren get rid of in the summer? And this is obviously few as well, Steve. The way we are losing football games this season, hard to take. Still behind Dean Smith. But only when Adam Eder was in the side did it look like we had a game plan. Since he's been out, can't see what this team is trying to do. Next season, we need to let some of the players go, which obviously does require other clubs to want them, and aim to build a side that can be competitive in the Premier League. 2 names for recruitment in the summer: Tom Lawrence and Joel Pirro, who I think is at Swansea, isn't he? Need at least 2. Oh, it's cut off. 2 creative midfielders, I'm going to assume you said there, Benjamin. Yeah. And then, well, we can only guess the rest of the pitch that needs sorting out. Yeah, big question. I mean, is that fair as well on Adam's role in all that? Hucks, do you think?
Yeah, I thought Adam. I think he started to show people what it was about, and before he got injured, I think it suited the way Dean Smith wanted to play with 2 up top, and maybe putting teams on the back foot a little bit more. You know, probably go being a bit more direct. But to answer his question, you know, the Dean Smith's going to look at his squad now, and he's going to say, "Who do I trust to be able to cope with the vigours of the Championship? Who do I trust week in, week out that are going to give me a 7, 8 out of 10?" And that's a difficult thing, because you're looking now in that squad, who do you really trust? So, first of all, I think it's going to be hard to move a lot of people out of that squad because they're on big money now. Some of them will be on big money. They ain't just going to go somewhere for a massive pay cut. The club have got to try and get some kind of value out of the players they've bought. Basically, it's going to be who Dean Smith believes and trusts can help get us out of the Championship, because that's what we're going to try and do, basically get back to the Premier League. It's a very, very interesting summer ahead, because it's not going to be as easy as people think, I don't think.
No, quite. What do you reckon, Steve? What do you want to see?
Well, I mean, I completely agree with Huck's point that it's going to be hard to move some of these players on. And I think, you know, people saying we need to get rid of player X, player Y, whatever, it's rarely as simple as that. You've got to find somebody that wants them and is prepared to pay the money for them, especially in a team that's just come down in the way that we have. There's been a bit of criticism of Dean Smith that I've seen over since the weekend. Obviously, he can't be immune to it because the performances have been so bad, but it's not his squad. And I think, you know, as we've said before, we don't know which players he particularly rates because he can only pick the teams that he's been given. So, I think he will know in his mind, having managed this team now for getting on for 30 games, who he can trust, as Hucks has said, and who he can't. That's the decision he has to make. Remember, we've still got players to come back from loan as well. You know, Hernandez, Hugill, McCallum, Mumba. So they've got to be thrown into the mix too.
Todd Cantwell.
Yeah, Todd, of course, Todd. I mean, and that's a massive question, and arguably the biggest one of the whole summer. Do we try and fit Todd back in? Because we know what he can do. We know what he can do in the Championship when he's on his game, but getting that out of him is the tough bit. A lot of water's gone under the bridge as far as he's concerned. But if you get Todd playing, my God, you know, we're looking strong then. So I don't know. We'll talk about it loads, I'm sure. I don't know.
From a player point of view with Todd, I've done it where I've been at a club, gone on loan somewhere else and come back. It's very, very difficult to be part of it again, because basically you're just out the door, aren't you? So it's only a matter of time. You're training with a 23, training with somebody else. It's really difficult to. I don't think it's ever happened where someone's gone away and come back. Maybe Basong did it, didn't it?
Yeah.
But that was needs must.
Yeah, and it was also management change.
New manager.
Which I think is the situation which does change it. I have to say, in all honesty, I don't see anyone who's been loaned out really coming back and playing a part next year. I might be proven wrong because it's just an opinion. I think it's going to be really difficult for them, and I just can't see it. What I can see is Dean Smith wanting to get in a couple of midfielders to really strengthen that area. I also think that's the area where he's going to lose a lot of players. Obviously, Norman, Gilmore, Rupp, I would imagine he's going to be confirmed his exit. He's out of contract. So that's 3 players. And then you're relying on Kenny and Les Malou and Sørensen, who he doesn't seem particularly convinced by. So I just think that's the area where maybe there will be a concentration on recruitment. And what I would add about players going, if I was a scout and I've been watching Norwich and I was working for another club, I would recommend putting in a cheeky bid for Teemu Pukki, especially if you're a club with loads of money, because you could probably get him cheap. He'd he'd do really well up top for you, and with good service. I would recommend, if Adam Eder came back and looked strong, I'd say he's young, he's got good talent. I think he's got an eye for goal and he's physical. I like him. And this centre back, Andrew Omobamidele, he's got a lot of potential. Not quite there yet, but we can bring him in, and we'll buy him. And they are 3 players that Norwich don't want to sell. But if that's who people want to come and get because they think they're the most attractive options, then they're the ones that they'll come by. I'm not saying they will. I'm just saying that that's a really key factor in terms of recruitment. It's who teams want as much as who you want to get rid of.
Yeah, Pukki's an interesting one because obviously we took the year on his contract, but he's guaranteed goals, isn't he?
Yeah,
he's guaranteed goals. So he's not a gamble for anybody. If they have to chuck £4, £5, £6 million and whatever, 50 grand a week, whatever, you're going to get your goals to pay that back. A lot of the others, you don't know what you're getting. You know what you're getting in the Premier League, not good enough. But Championship, they may be able to put it off. Some of them might come and shine. Joris, Sargent, they might be able to cut it in the Championship, but it's still a might. It's not a definite. So.
Honestly, if I was in a recruitment team, and I keep saying it, in the Premier League team, and thought we need another striker, I think team would be a no-brainer. And I hate saying that because I can't really think of the thought of him not being at Norwich next season, to be honest.
Out of the 3 you mentioned, Pukki, Eder, Omobamidele, I think I can't see either Eder or Omobamidele going this summer. Out of the 3 of them, if you had to say one of them wasn't going to be here at the end of the summer, I'd say Timu, because I think that someone might take a chance with him. I hope they're all here, but I could see Timu going. Let's
move on. Quick, no one's listening. Carl Jockett, we need betting company to buy us out. I mean, it's a fair point, Carl. I don't know if every Norwich fan would agree with you, but
no, I don't agree with that.
I also don't.
But open-minded, free speech, all that sort of stuff. Chris Elliott, hey Chris, I've never gone to many games expecting us to be bad and being proven right every time. Well, try writing about it. Killian O'Grady, Killian, it's Killian, isn't it? I'm sure I said this last time, Killian. Apologies. Player of the season is being voted on. Yes, the voting is open. The Barry Butler Memorial Trophy, which I don't think got written anywhere. Who would you pick? This is straightforward, isn't it?
It's only 2 for me, Pukki or Hanley.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Timu gets, unless there's some sort of like Michael McGovern style protest vote like there was with Carlo Nash that time. But I think it's Timu, isn't it?
I would say Timu, but yeah, Grant has done very well as well. Very true. Phil Sad, get your boots on next year, Hucks, he says. And also get the mold Asics on. Oh, there you go. Did you used to wear Asics boots?
I wore Asics and Adidas and all, yeah. I did when I first come to Norwich, I had Asics boots, yeah.
That's good knowledge, Phil. Good knowledge. I wouldn't have known that one. Right, I'd read those ones. How are we doing? Okay, last few then, if we can. Super Nicholas, he says, I'm a neutral, so presumably not a Norwich fan. Will Rashica stay for the championship and for championship football?
Well,
Steve, you're laughing.
Well, he's barely staying for Premier League football, is he? I mean, God, he's been such a disappointment the last few weeks. Like, he was so good. So good is maybe an exaggeration, but his performances have been pretty bad the last few weeks, haven't they? He's not staying. Surely he's not staying next season.
There's been flashes of what he could do, flashes, but I've never seen him have a full consistent 90 minutes. Then again, I've not seen a lot of them not have a full consistent 90 minutes. But you'd like to think if he did stay that he would have the ability to do a lot better in the Championship. You can see there's a player in there. Mm-hmm. Whether he wants to be here, that's another matter. Only he knows that.
This is true. Let's see if I can find some more questions as we move through. Here we go. Chris Jennings. This club is too cozy. Most fans don't care if we go down. These podcasts are good. Thank you, Chris. But Michael, you need to try and get an interview with Lord Lucan. I mean, Stuart Webber. And why do you have confidence in Dean Smith? Yes, he hasn't brought any new players, but style of play worse than Farker. Which I suppose is are you comparing, last championship season Farker to current Premier League version with Smith? Because quite clearly, but I think it has to be said that Norwich's identity was a bit of a muddle all season, especially when Daniel was in charge at the start and, moving to a sort of a 5-3-2 was not helping in those 2 goalless draws, and partly losing that identity, I think, played a role in Daniel Farke losing his job. Yes, I have indeed asked to speak to Stuart Webber quite a lot, and I will continue to ask to do that. All of the media are asking for that at the moment. That is to say, as I've understood it, the club's view was that Stuart Webber would talk about the season and about the football, which has to be regarded at least an intention different to the Times interview. You can agree with that or not, but that was the intention of the club. I'm not giving you my opinion. This is what I'm saying as a fact, or the intention of it. He was always going to speak about the football once in the period between relegation being confirmed or Norwich's fate being sealed and the end of the season. We are still in that period. So at some point, I expect we will hear from Stuart Webber. Now, how they do it, whether I get to ask him any questions, whether anyone else gets to ask him any questions, don't know the answer, but I think it's fair enough that it's still in that time frame that they said it will happen. So I'm expecting it to happen. So rest assured, I am asking for that, as are we all, Chris. And I don't know what you mean by too cozy. The club, half the people walked out, so they just went somewhere else, I think. But Chris, thank you for watching, and thank you for your kind words, and thanks for the question as well. What else have we got here? Or we'll go better rattle on now, haven't we? Guy Williams, do you really think this team will be competitive in the Championship next season? Because I don't think so. Last 2 titles in the second tier included Emi Buendia, the little elephant in the room, and this team has so few goals. I mean, I don't know if it's just me. It's not Dean Smith's fault, but when he talks about the fact that Norwich have won the Championship twice the last 3 seasons, I kind of just sit there thinking, yeah, but you weren't really part of that. Is that harsh, Steve?
Well, the thing with the Championship is that we've seen it. If you can get some momentum going, then you really can get on a roll in that league. And we do have players who have been there and done it twice, and that's kind of what gives me a bit of faith. We still need a bit of a clear out. We still need new blood coming in, but we've also got a manager who's been on one of those roles. Villa won 10 games in a row the year that we went up from the Championship. He's been promoted himself. So yeah, I mean, right now, if you're going to say, are we going to finish at the top? I would say, well, there's not much there telling me that we will, but it's a long season, and I think if we can get the summer right, then that's going to be a good start, and I think we've still got a decent chance.
Love it. There's a question here as well, Hucks, actually, which I'll get to from the Sprouston Ripper. Hope you're okay, Sprouston Ripper. Hucks, did you feel the squad you went back down with in 2005-06 was good enough to get back up? This current squad definitely seems weaker than that one was.
I think Dean Ashton was a big part of that. If you keep Dean Ashton, you've got a chance. If you're in the Championship, you've got a player of Dean Ashton's quality, and obviously myself and a few others. You will create chances to score goals. I think the biggest problem, like I said before, we know what Puka's going to give you. We know what Krul's going to give you. We know what Hangler's going to give you. We do Kenny to a certain extent in the Championship, but around everything else around that, I'm not sure about. It's not a definite that Sargent's going to be good enough for the Championship. It's not a definite that Jovic is going to be good enough for the Championship. I'm not sure Rashica will want to play in the Championship. So we've got to have a team that's all pushing in the right direction. And at the minute, Dean Smith's going to want to use some of his own players because he's been working with a squad that he had nothing to do with. And basically, they've kind of down tools on him, if that makes sense. So in his heart, he's going to want people that he believes in and he trusts to put to because the Championship's a tough season. It's game in, game out, week in, week out. You can't have any passengers. You need everyone pushing in the right direction. That's the fans. That's everything. We've got to galvanise this group of players and fans, because if it's like this to start next season where there's protests and this and that, whether they're right or wrong, it's only going to go one way. It's with us not playing well enough, another manager getting sacked, still got Webber going, then we're all over the shop again, and then we're in another building process. So there's no easy answer of what's right and what's wrong in a minute, but we've got to somehow galvanise this group of players with new additions and people leaving, to try and have a push for this championship, because the two times I won the league, the teams were teams, not individuals. Even though we had some great players, they're teams working for day in, day out, all got the common goal to go and win enough games to get out of the league. And that's the only way you can do it. The championship's so ruthless. It's so ruthless. Just having some good players isn't enough. You've got to be ready to go week in, week out. Be ready for that fight. When you're tired, when you've only had 2 days rest before the next game, we can do it. We've done it before, but I think it's different this time, because I don't know how much the manager trusts the players they've got. That's what last time Falk came down, but he knew he had Puke, he knew he had Bundia, he knew that Max Aaron's could do a job, he knew he had Tim Krul, the best goalkeeper in the league. But now we're coming down with no shows really for the last 3 months. Well, all season really. It's been no shows all season. So as a manager, you're thinking, right, who am I taking on this journey with me? Because then what's going to happen if we don't start winning games next year? Dean Smith's going to get sacked. That's what will happen. So Dean Smith's in his head thinking, right, I need people that I can believe in who want to be on this journey. That's the only way you can do it. Sorry for going on a bit of a rant. Sorry.
You know what? It was beautifully said, and that's exactly why you're on. And it's that point is exactly why squads of very good players and have parachute payments end up not going up or finishing mid-table, and that's the exact point, because it's about the sum of the parts. So fascinating stuff. We are almost done with our Q&A time, and we're going to miss the 9 o'clock deadline, but that's fine. Just a couple of points. Neil Harris, just on European football, he does say European football, does Cardiff City count? Stephen Simons adds in, we've got European football, Cardiff and Swansea. So there we go. There's what else can we say to that, really? And then there was one other thing which I was just going to put up, which was from Mick Ness. Just imagine what would have happened if we did not have the soccer bot, which is a rather glib way to probably end our Q&A section. So many comments and questions we didn't get through. Thank you for all of them. Clearly, we're going to have to do this again. We'll probably have to make sure it's with Hucks. I don't know if we get as many questions if it was just me and Steve. But, thank you for them all. Really brilliant. Let's quickly move on, shall we, to something we all want to do, which is talk about the forthcoming games.
This is almost fantasy football.
Yeah, let's talk about the forthcoming 7 days for Norwich City. As if getting ready for the championship was now the priority, we have a midweek game to get excited about, which is, of course, Leicester away on Wednesday. It was the rearranged game from New Year's Day, which I'm still thankful I got that day off. Can't lie. It was a real treat.
If one good thing came out of this season, it was that, Michael.
It was that. I mean, obviously, I've now got to go to Leicester on a Wednesday night. So here's my payback. Then Norwich at Wolves on Sunday. Is there anything anyone wants to say about Steve? What would you like to say about either of these two games that is both interesting and informative?
I don't think I can manage either of those. I'll just say what I said last week, which is, will we beat 21 points that we got last time? I'll probably be saying that same time next week as well. But yeah, that's all we've got to. 2 things to aim for. Can we beat 21 points? Can we finish ahead of Watford? Other than that, and I suppose players playing for next season, who's willing to stick their head above the parapet. I keep thinking we need to see reaction somewhere. One of these games we'll see reaction and we don't, but maybe Leicester away will be that game. So I somehow doubt it, but you never know.
Well, I mean, I don't feel like Leicester have got much to play for, Hucks. Wolves, I think they probably still think they might be able to squeak in maybe to a top 6. I don't know. That might have gone now. It was a good draw for them, obviously, at Chelsea, but 2 teams with little to play for. But then I was kind of thinking that might be the case if West Ham were feeling a bit down on themselves. So
I think Leicester have got a lot to play for. There's a lot of players in their squad who've underperformed this season. They're 15th in the league?
Mm.
I can see their manager being under a little bit of pressure. I know they did pretty well in Europe, but for a team that obviously qualified for Europe the season before, they've been relatively poor for them. So they've still got, look, if you're a professional footballer, you should have everything to play for. Every game could be your last. You can't go through the motions. You've got to give it everything. And there'll be people in the Leicester squad or in the Leicester team are playing for their futures. So there should be no easy games in the Premier League.
Right, Norwich players, you've heard that. No easy games. I will obviously be at both games, which is exciting. I wonder how many people other than me will be at both games. It will be interesting how many make the trip.
I won't be. But some, fair play to the ones who still turn out. That's true loyalty, isn't it?
Is it on BT Sport?
I doubt it.
If it was on TV on the New Year's Day, it has to be covered, doesn't it? If it's on,
that's true. Or maybe it is then.
I might be able to. I don't know why. I don't know why.
Sky because Man City are playing.
What are you saying?
We've been overlooked.
I don't think. I think the Wolves game was down as a Sunday anyway for some reason.
Wolves surely won't be.
Leicester doesn't look like it is, but I might be wrong. And then
it might be on Prime. It might be on Prime. I'm not sure.
Might be on Prime.
Who knows? Well, if you, it's more.
You're trying to be informative. You might, a Norwich fan might want to watch it if it's on Amazon Prime. You don't know.
I don't know. They would. Yeah. Maybe they would. I tell you what,
it's not. I don't think it is. It looks like it's not.
Okay. If we find out that that's different, I will tweet it. So keep an eye on my tweets, and I will inform you all at a later date whether either of the forthcoming games is on television. And then you can make up your own mind. Although bizarrely, I went down to watch. So I've been working all night. Went down and thought I'll watch Match of the Day. Sat down, watched whoever it was Man City Newcastle, wasn't it? And then a couple of other games and a couple of others. And I was sitting there, and then Mark Chapman said, Norwich were hosting West Ham. And I literally went, oh yeah, Norwich played today, didn't they? I literally blanked it. I think I've just gone. I'd switched off and thought, I'll watch Quest, because that's where Norwich would be. I just completely, and I was like, oh yeah, and then I got to relive it all, which is obviously a joy. So yes, I will be at both games, so that you don't have to remember that. So I've written that in the link forthcoming. Forget I just said that. That is a time. Which is pretty good going actually for how we usually do these pods. So we are done for time on the ball. The Norwich City podcast that is ready to take on a double bill of the Midlands, so you don't have to. You see, I did write it in the link. If you're yet to do so, make sure you subscribe via your podcast player of choice. The pod is available free for everyone on your usual player, and we are now streaming the recording of the podcast live in video form on my social media channels. Have a search and you'll find them, I'm sure. Ratings and reviews, wherever prompted, are always hugely appreciated. And if you want to get in touch with any questions or topic proposals, sling me a direct message on Twitter. The handle is at Michael J. Bailey. A big thank you, huge thank you, a wonderful thank you of gratitude to our guests this evening. Mr. Darren Huckerby, did you enjoy that?
Yeah, it's all right. It's nice to get a few things off the chest.
Good. You did a brilliant job. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it as always. Look after your hip.
Yeah. Getting any better, to be honest with you.
Okay, let's end on a high. Take care, Hucks. Brilliant to have you on. I hope we get to do it again. Steve, thank you as always. Well done for eating your dinner in time.
Thank you. I might have indigestion, but we're running on a high, so I've had a great time. There you go.
This has been brilliant. Highlight of the weekend. We will be back next week for our penultimate bout of Canaries Capers for this season in another edition of the On the Ball Norwich City podcast. Until then, never mind the danger. And that is it. We're done for the podcast this evening. A huge thank you for all your questions and comments. I really do appreciate it. They were absolutely awesome. And I think they've made for a really good podcast, which I'm going to edit now. Make sure you subscribe to the feeds and you'll get it. In the meantime, look after yourselves. Thanks for joining us. And I will see you at the King Power Stadium. Is that what it's still called? On Wednesday night, Dean Smith's press conference in the morning. So I'll be there for that. Take care of yourselves. Do something fun in between the football, and then I'll see you on Wednesday night. Take care.